All right, hi everybody. Welcome back to the Talking Politics podcast with Daphne and Daniel. I'm your host Daniel,
and I'm your host Daphne.
And on today's topic, it's going to be climate change. So, you guys should be fairly familiar with climate change. I mean, it's been headline news for the past, I would say, decade or so. But for the viewers that don't really know what climate change is, it's basically long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns throughout our Earth. So, some interesting facts. Since 1850 and as of January 18, 2024, our Earth has risen by an average of 0.11 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's pretty bad. And over time, there has been some climate change policies made. For example, back in, I believe it was 2007, the Obama administration enacted the Clean Power Plan. And so that was basically aimed to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from power plants. And it basically encouraged us to transition to cleaner sources, such as renewable sources. So the wind industry, the wind turbine industry really took a big, I would say, leap in production that with that plan being enacted. But then also there were some emission standards that were placed. But with this being such a national scale, some states have taken upon themselves that they feel that they should put stricter laws into that.
Oh, really?
So for example, California has one of the most stricter laws on emissions.
Yeah, isn't California like a very heavy populated state? You know, lots of cars, there's always traffic and everything. You know, lots of factories as well. Like, just giving on like all that carbon and everything. And also, isn't like the forest fires also a very big risk that has been happening on that side too?
Yeah, the carbon dioxide emitted from those forest fires do pose a problem, but not as much as, the LA traffic can be.
Yeah.
Like, that is nothing to how bad it can get. But we also have a guest for our second episode. It's a friend of mine. His name's Mason. So Mason, what do you feel that renewable energy sources could help us lower our climate change by a significant margin, or do you think that it will make no change at all?
So, see, this is a very interesting question because I feel like it could, but due to the infrastructure we currently have, there's going to be a lot of changes that need to be made. I don't know if you remember a while back, but I believe it was some kind of proposition called Proposition K, where people were saying something about changing the infrastructure of El Paso to be suitable for solar, which I mean, it would be nice, but the issue is the fact that it's so expensive to, switch to solar, and that's going to be having every house support that, which I would say, the median average income household here in El Paso, I believe, is below the state average. I don't know if that's, true, but I at least feel like it should be. I don't think most people here are generally well off, especially if we're right next to the border. So I feel like it'd be a big issue to achieve that, but I think it could be a big margin to include in.
So would you say that, one's income plays a huge factor in how well they can, reduce their carbon footprint? Like, for example, like we have cars being made by Tesla that emit no emissions, but they're so expensive for the average consumer that, it won't really make a dent in a big city like El Paso. But even for like big states like California, where they have some strict emission laws, do you think like how I said, one's income plays a huge factor into that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to live in California alone, you have to have good 100,000 just to live in those big cities. I mean, El Paso, you could rent here is fairly cheap, so, I forgot. So minimum wage here is also not that high. I think it's like $7.50. That person really isn't going to be, focused on looking for a car that is going to help, reduce carbon footprint. They're more going to be focused on what's better for their needs and their price range rather than, what's going to help out the environment.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up, that like it's such a background issue that people focus on, because you have to worry about your daily well-being, like are you gonna get food on the table, are you gonna get paid this week, stuff like that. So Daphne, how do you think we should kind of bring that topic of climate change into the I guess main issue excuse me, sorry, let me rephrase that. How do you think we can move climate change into a more focused point that we should focus on?
I guess make more policies, but for each state. Because at the end of the day, the government is making policies for the whole state, like the whole country. But at the same time, it's also jobs. It's also a job for the states. Because not only has California already been making changes, as they're very big, they cause lots of carbon emissions. They have one of the highest populations. Everybody, the traffic is insane. And I just think we should make more policies, but more to the states. And also, I was thinking also about solar panels.
How Mason brought it up earlier?
Yeah, like solar panels, I know they're expensive, but I think they could also, the government could try to also fix that. For example, at least provide some solar panels for certain type of buildings or factories, organizations, schools, or everything, just to lower the cost.
So instead of being company mandate by these companies, you think it should be a federal mandate for these kind of big corporations to start implementing a renewable source of energy into their companies?
Yeah, because this is serious. 2023 was the hottest year
so far.
And I think we're just getting more and more. The ice caps are melting. Those little sad pictures we see of the polar bears in a melted in a melted ice cap, just looking all sad at us. That's real. I'm sorry for being so loud, but it's a stressful situation. It's real. It's happening. It's gonna affect our generation. It's just gonna affect all of us. As you and me are Gen Z, right? The boomers and the other generations were burning on these fossil fuels because they were they were not thinking about the world. And now that it's actually, in terms, burning down, we're the ones being affected.
So you think we have a responsibility to take charge of this issue?
But I guess also everybody has to take charge, in a way. Because now we're the generation that thought about it. Back then, they were, they had all these fossil fuels, they were burning them, they were living off them. They were not really thinking as we are thinking now about the earth. But yeah, that's my point of view. And thank you so much, Mason, for showing up.
Yeah, thank you so much for showing up, Mason, providing your input for this podcast. Do you want to say anything else before we log off?
I think that's all I have for today. Being on the podcast, thank you, Danny and Daphne. You guys did very well. Until then.
So this is it for today. Thank you guys so much for listening to us about public policies. Remember, we have a past episode talking about the UBI, Universal Basic Income, which is, again, another policy. But, that's up to you guys to find out about it, checking our other episode. So this has been really nice. As your host, Daphne.
And your host, Daniel.
So, yeah, this is it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.